9 days. That is the only number that matters when you try to make sense of how Chuck Norris left this world. 9 days between a birthday video of an 86-year-old martial artist throwing punches in Hawaiian sunlight and a family statement that stopped the internet cold. 9 days between a man telling his fans he was leveling up and the universe deciding his level was complete. When the news broke on March 19, 2026, it did not land the way celebrity deaths usually land. The last image the world held of Chuck Norris was not of a frail man in a chair. It was of him moving, hitting, sparring, looking like time itself had chosen to leave him alone out of respect. On his 86th birthday, March 10th, Norris posted a video alongside a message that now carries weight he never intended. His words were, "I don't age, I level up. Nothing like some playful action on a sunny day to make you feel young. I'm grateful for another year, good health, and the chance to keep doing what I love." He signed off with, "So, God bless Chuck Norris." The footage showed him sparring with a coach, moving with a fluidity that most men half his age would struggle to replicate. Millions shared it. Nobody watched that video thinking it was a goodbye, and that is exactly what it turned out to be. The family statement appeared on Instagram and Facebook on Friday morning, March 20th, crediting the Norris family. It read, "It is with heavy hearts that our family shares the sudden passing of our beloved Chuck Norris yesterday morning. While we would like to keep the circumstances private, please know that he was surrounded by his family and was at peace." That word, sudden, stopped people cold, because TMZ had already reported that a source who spoke with Chuck on Wednesday described him as working out and in an upbeat, jovial mood. He trained the day before he died, hospitalized within 24 hours on Kauai, with no official cause of death ever released. What people were left with instead was a video, 4 words about leveling up, and a grief that felt strangely personal for millions who had never shaken his hand. Understanding why the world reacted that way means going back further than the action films and the television fame, all the way to a quiet, awkward kid in Oklahoma, born on March 10, 1940. Carlos Ray Norris came into the world through Irish American and Cherokee Native American heritage, his father an alcoholic, the family deep in poverty. In his 2004 memoir, Against All Odds, he described himself in school as shy and inhibited, which reads almost like a punchline now, but was simply true then. After his parents divorced, his mother relocated with him and his 2 younger brothers to Torrance, California, and after high school in 1958, he enlisted in the Air Force as an air policeman. That decision set everything else in motion. Stationed at Osan Air Base in South Korea, 2 things happened that rewired him entirely. He picked up the nickname Chuck, and he discovered martial arts through Tang Soo Do. Something locked into place on that training mat in a way that a classroom never had, and he returned from Korea as a genuinely different person carrying a purpose he had not had before. The hybrid martial arts style he eventually developed, Chun Kuk Do, meaning the universal way, grew directly from those early sessions. From 1968 to 1974, he held the title of undefeated world professional middleweight karate champion 6 consecutive times, and the word undefeated in that sentence is not decorative. He dominated competition the way certain athletes do, where the result feels inevitable before the contest even begins. Retirement from competition led to teaching, and his karate schools drew a client list that included Steve McQueen, Bob Barker, Priscilla Presley, and Donnie and Marie Osmond. Barker later recalled with genuine feeling that Norris had cracked his ribs during a training session, which tells you exactly how Chuck Norris taught martial arts. McQueen was the one who looked at Norris and suggested acting, telling him in a conversation Norris later recounted to CNN in 1982 that if he applied himself the way he had to martial arts, he might have a chance. Norris was not a man who did things halfway, and what followed proved it. The meeting that accelerated everything came through Bruce Lee. The 2 trained together through the mid-1960s, building a genuine friendship, and in 1972 they shared the screen in the action film The Way of the Dragon. Their fight sequence inside the Roman Colosseum became one of the most iconic scenes in martial arts cinema history. Norris once described asking Lee before filming who would win, and Lee's answer was immediate. He wins because he is the star. Norris pushed back, saying Lee wanted to beat the world karate champion. Lee corrected him without hesitation. He did not want to beat the world champion. He wanted to kill the world champion. That film put Norris on a trajectory that no one could redirect. What followed through the late 1970s and into the 1980s was a run of action films that built him into America's defining martial arts movie star. Good Guys Wear Black in 1978, The Octagon in 1980, Lone Wolf McQuade in 1983, Code of Silence in 1985, and Firewalker in 1986 all came in succession, each one reinforcing an identity the American public had decided to adopt as its own. Unlike Arnold Schwarzenegger or Bruce Willis or Jackie Chan, Norris never leaned on humor to soften the image, and that was never the point. He was the no-nonsense option, the one you chose when you wanted an action star who felt capable of actually doing everything you were watching. The missing in action films carried a weight audiences rarely understood fully. When the first one arrived in 1984, built around the rescue of American POWs allegedly still held after the Vietnam War, Norris was working through something personal because his younger brother Wieland had been killed serving in Vietnam. He dedicated the films to his brother's memory, and every frame of those movies meant something beyond box office performance. The camera captured an action star doing action star things, but the man behind it was channeling real grief into something that mattered to him in ways a paycheck never could. When his film career began cooling in the early 1990s, he made the kind of career pivot that only the smartest people managed to execute cleanly. Walker, Texas Ranger, premiered in 1993 and ran for 8 seasons, with Norris playing Cordell Walker, a veteran Texas Ranger fighting crime across the Lone Star State, and the show became a genuine television phenomenon. A TV Guide Award nomination for Favorite Actor in a Drama came in 1999. An entire generation grew up with Walker as a weekly fixture, knowing Norris not as a fading film star, but as a consistent presence in their living rooms every Friday night. And then, somewhere around 2005, something happened that no publicist could have manufactured. Chuck Norris became the internet's favorite subject of absurdist humor, with a wave of satirical facts circulating online celebrating his supposedly inhuman physical capabilities. Chuck Norris doesn't do push-ups. He pushes the earth down. Chuck Norris counted to infinity twice. The jokes spread across every corner of early internet culture, fueled by a generation discovering what viral content could do before the word viral even applied to content. What made the phenomenon stick was his response. He did not get offended or issue statements demanding people stop. He embraced it, put together his own official Chuck Norris fact book combining his favorites with true stories and personal codes he lived by. Leaning into the joke turned out to be its own kind of strength. Behind all of it, the championships and the films and the television fame and the internet celebrity, lived a man whose personal life carried far more complexity than any screen image suggested. His first marriage was to Diane Holacek, his high school sweetheart from the time he was 16 and she was 15. A marriage that lasted 30 years before separation in 1988 and finalization in 1989. During that marriage, while serving in the Air Force, he had an affair that produced a daughter named Dina, whose existence he only learned of when she was 26 years old and wrote him a letter. In 2004, he spoke about it publicly, describing how she explained in the letter that she had known since she was 16, but her mother told her he was married, and they should not interfere. Without hesitation, he accepted Dina into his life. His second marriage began in 1997 when he saw Gina O'Kelly at a dinner where he arrived with someone else entirely, was immediately drawn to her, and asked her to dinner that same night. She had a minor guest role on Walker, Texas Ranger at the time. They married on November 28, 1998, and on August 30, 2001, welcomed twins, a son named Dakota Allen and a daughter named Danilee Kelly. Dakota earned a 5th-degree black belt in Chun-Kuk Do. Danilee achieved her 2nd-degree black belt in 2015, both of them carrying forward the discipline their father had built his entire life around. The hardest fight of Chuck Norris's life came in 2013, and it had nothing to do with a film set or a competition ring. Gina underwent 3 MRI scans with gadolinium-based contrast dye within 8 days, and her health collapsed afterward, a condition diagnosed as gadolinium deposition disease, bringing severe nerve pain, burning sensations across her body, cognitive difficulties, and kidney complications. The couple alleged the contrast agent had poisoned her with lasting consequences, spent nearly $2 million on treatments including chelation therapy and stem cell treatment in China, and filed a $10 million lawsuit against the manufacturers. Norris walked away from Hollywood entirely to be by her side, and the lawsuit was voluntarily dismissed in January 2020 without a settlement. Some battles are worth fighting even when the verdict does not go the way you need it to. Together they built Kickstart Kids, an organization delivering martial arts instruction and character development to students across Texas, reaching more than 100,000 children over its history. In his final years, Norris lived with his family on the Lone Wolf Ranch outside Houston along Highway 90. His mother passed away in 2024, and his first wife, Diane Holacek, died just months before he did in December. The final chapter carried a quiet weight of loss that most people watching from the outside could not fully see. When the death announcement came, the tributes arrived from every direction. Sylvester Stallone called him all-American in every way. Arnold Schwarzenegger described him as a badass in real life and in Hollywood. Dolph Lundgren said he had looked up to Norris as a role model since his earliest days as a martial artist. Lee Majors called the loss deeply personal and added with characteristic warmth that Chuck might be able to teach the good Lord a few karate moves. President Donald Trump called him a great guy and a really tough cookie. Former President George W. Bush and Laura Bush issued a statement calling him a Texas legend and noted his foundation had made a real difference in young people's lives through martial arts and character. Bush included the line, "When Chuck Norris entered a room, he didn't turn the lights on, he turned the dark off." Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called him a great friend of Israel and a close personal friend. The tribute that cut through everything else came from Mike Huckabee, who wrote about a visit Chuck and Gina made to a veterans' home in New Hampshire, going room to room, sitting with every veteran, listening to each person's story, staying as long as anyone needed. When they got back in the vehicle afterward, both Chuck and Gina were weeping. That image of the man the internet had spent 2 decades calling indestructible, sitting in a car with tears running down his face after listening to aging veterans, tells you more about who Chuck Norris actually was than any championship belt or box office number ever could. In Grimes County, neighbors described him as humble and grounded, a military veteran who put faith, family, and community above everything else. Local resident Joseph Resnicek said there was a hole that would never be filled and that it was hard to comprehend someone who had impacted 50 years of culture. That is the right measurement. Not by streaming numbers or social media metrics, but by 5 decades of cultural presence that reached from championship karate rings to presidential statements to a veteran's home in New England where a famous man wept because other people's pain moved him past the point of composure. His daughter Danilee wrote on Instagram that grief did not feel like a good enough word. She wrote that her father had been her protector from the moment she was born, and that from the moment he took her in his arms, she had always been his little girl. Among everything said by presidents, action stars, and prime ministers, those words landed the hardest. The family released no information about a memorial service. The internet had already built its own. The birthday video served as the eulogy, the comments served as flowers, and the memes came back one final time carrying actual feeling instead of just humor. Millions of people who never met Chuck Norris watched that last video one more time, the one of an 86-year-old man moving through Hawaiian sunlight like time had made a personal exception for him, the one where he said he did not age, he leveled up, and they understood exactly what he meant.